Take a deep breath with me. In and out. Feel your body here in this moment. Feel your spirit stretching beyond it. Welcome, beloved ones, to From the Garden Sacred Talks. Here in the garden, we gather in a circle that knows no walls. We meet in the place where heart meets soil, where prayer meets breath, where the unseen touches the seen. Today, we begin a journey, one that will root us deeper in truth and open us wider to the mystery of divine. You are not alone here. There is a voice walking with you, offering what's been remembered, received, and rooted in love. I'll be your companion in this garden, not as a teacher or a title, but as another soul walking barefoot on sacred ground. These talks are not instructions, they are invitations. If something here stirs, let it grow. That's the garden speaking back. In this episode, we are going to discuss 3 worlds: the spiritual, the physical, and then the psychic bridge. Now, we live in 2 essential worlds, the spirit world and the physical world. The spirit world is unseen, eternal, and limitless. It is the source of wisdom, guidance, energy, and presence. Then we have the physical world, which is tangible, temporal, and embodied. It is where breath meets bone, where lessons are lived, and where spirit expresses through form. Now, where these 2 worlds meet, where the unseen touches the seen, a third experience arises. This is the psychic world. It's the bridge between eternal and the embodied. It's the bridge between energetic and material. Now, it's not a world all its own. It's the sacred overlap. It's the in-between. It's where spirit becomes experience and experience becomes insight. This bridge is the realm of intuition, emotion, energy, and resonance. It's where we receive dreams, inner knowing, and whispers of divine. It is also where we feel tension between both worlds. It's the ache of being a spiritual being in human form. I've created a Venn diagram to kind of show in picture form what I've just explained. And as you see from the Venn diagram, the blue circle represents the spiritual world, and the red circle represents the physical world. Now, in the spiritual world, like we said, everything in blue is unseen, it's limitless, it's eternal. And then in the physical world, everything that's shown in red is what's tangible, temporal, and embodied. And then you see the overlap where blue and red meet, we have purple. And in that realm, that is the psychic realm, that is that bridge realm. And that overlap is where we have our intuition, our emotion, our energy, and our resonance. In that bridge world is how we bring the spirit world into the physical world, and that physical world meets in the spiritual world. Why it matters. Understanding this bridge can help us to live life more consciously. We don't have to choose between being spiritual or physical. We are already both. But not everyone was taught how to walk this bridge. And for some of us, the psychic world was not gentle. It was overwhelming. I've always lived with a heightened awareness of the spirit world. I was drawn into things like fortune telling, voodoo, Ouija boards, and astrology. Pretty much anything that would help me make sense of what it was I was feeling. My siblings and I could hear and sometimes see spirits. It wasn't sacred to us, but it wasn't terrifying either. It was just something we lived with. I didn't yet understand the difference between spirit and distortion. I didn't yet know that I was walking this bridge with no lantern, no map, and no guide. When I was 28 years old, something happened that changed everything. On this particular day, I was home alone cleaning house. It was midday, so there wasn't a need for any lights to be on. Well, as I'm cleaning, I happened to walk by my sister's room and her table lamp was on. So I didn't think anything of it. I went in the room and I turned the lamp off and I continued to clean. Now, I cleaned for some time and I happened to walk by her room again, and the same table lamp was turned on. Now, I knew I had turned the light off, but doubt crept in, and I wasn't quite sure if I had actually turned the light off. So I went into her room, and to ensure that the light was off, I unplugged it. Well, I went back to cleaning, and sometime later, I walked by her room again, and the same lamp happened to be on again. Now, this time I was sure I had turned this light off. So I walked over to the lamp, I picked it up with one hand, and I ran my hand down the cord to find out if it was plugged in or not, because I was sure I had unplugged it. Well, I was holding the lamp in my hand. I got to the end of that cord and the lamp was unplugged. In one hand, I had the lamp. In the other hand, I had the unplugged cord and the lamp was shining brightly. Now, at this point, I am terrified, but I'm confident in who I am. So I say, whatever is in here, I don't want any kind of communication. I don't want to hear. I don't want to see. I don't want to feel. I know the spirit world exists, but I don't want anything to do with it. At that point, I didn't realize it, but I had severed the cord between myself and the spirit realm. I had chosen the physical realm over the spirit realm. I'd like to share a similar story that happened to a guy named Moses. And for those of you who don't know Moses, Moses should have died as a baby. Back then, around the time Moses was born, Pharaoh declared that all male Hebrew children under 2 were to be thrown into the river. Well, Moses' mother hid him for some time, and then she made a basket and she put him in the basket and let it float out into the Nile River. Moses was found by the Pharaoh's daughter, who then adopted him. So Moses was raised as Egyptian royalty. Now, what's important about that is the Egyptians were very spiritual, so Moses was raised spiritually. The Egyptians believed that the Pharaoh could become a god, or that he was the god reincarnated. So from a young age, Moses was raised with these beliefs. When he was about 40 years old, he came to the knowledge that he was actually Hebrew and not Egyptian. Then, seeing how the Hebrews were treated, one day, out of anger, he ended up killing an Egyptian. Then he found himself living in the wilderness. While in the wilderness, he came across a bush that was on fire, but it wasn't burning. Seeing this, Moses realized that this was a sacred moment. He realized that he was in the presence of spirit and he had a conversation with God. That conversation led to him freeing the Israelites from Egyptian bondage. Moses went down in history as one of the greatest prophets to ever live. Moses' reaction was quite different than mine. When I held the lamp in one hand and the unplugged cord in the other, and the lamp was still shining brightly, I didn't know consciously, but I knew that spirit had overstepped its bounds. Instead of reacting and drawing nearer like Moses did with the burning bush, I made a different choice. I severed the connection. I declared out loud I wanted no further communication, not from the spirit world, not from the psychic world, not from anything unseen. I wasn't rejecting spirit. I was rejecting chaos. I wasn't turning from divine. I was trying to protect the child who was in me, who had never been taught how to discern what was holy from what was haunting. And here's the grace of it. Even when we say no, the garden waits. Spirit waits. And one day, the path reopens, not through fear, but through remembrance. Now that I understand the psychic bridge and how it works, I often wonder what would have happened if I had this same understanding when I was 28. How I might have reacted differently, how I might have reacted like Moses and taken that as a sacred moment, as a time to commune with spirit, to gain divine knowledge and understanding. I'm certain I wouldn't have felt so disconnected. I wouldn't have spent so much time wondering what my purpose was. And we might have even been celebrating 15 years of Peaceful Gardens versus me just now starting out. I'd like to share a story that my dad has told several times in his sermons to show how we pass our beliefs on to our children without even knowing. Well, my dad is a very powerful healer, and he was coming into his gifts. One day, my sister and I were playing in the park. My dad was watching us play, and my sister fell and bust her chin wide open. My dad comes over, blood is just gushing out from this wound and it's going everywhere. His mind is racing. He's concerned because he doesn't have health insurance and he knows she's going to need stitches. He's wondering where he's going to get the money from. He's wondering how he's going to pay the rest of his bills. He's concerned for her because she needs to have stitches. And in the midst of his mind racing, he hears a voice. The voice says, "Place your hand on her chin and pray." So he places his hand on her chin and he begins to pray. A couple of seconds pass. He takes his hand off. He notices the wound is not bleeding anymore. In fact, the wound is closed over. Then he gets an urge to put his hand back on her chin and continue to pray. Then he hears, in 3 days, this wound will be completely healed. He prays a bit more, and lo and behold, in 3 days, the wound is completely healed. Now, this was an extraordinary event that I would not believe if my sister hadn't told me that she remembers that happening. She does not have a scar. She doesn't have any kind of indication that she ever busted her chin open and that she ever needed stitches. Now, the story goes on, and after this moment happened, my dad is so excited, so awe-stricken that he is going to go and heal everyone he can touch. He goes into a hospital and he has the intention, I'm going to heal everyone. I'm just going to go from room to room, laying hands on people and healing them. Well, the first room he walks into, there was a lady. He did not know the lady, but she began to tell him everything that he had ever done in life. And this scared my dad to the point where he decided, I am not going to heal anyone. I am going to lay these gifts down and never pick them up again. And as far as I know, he never healed anyone in that manner again. Now, this shows another instance where the spirit world reached out to us and we decided out of fear to reject the spirit world, to close up that communication, to close up that flow between the spirit world and the physical world, which happens in that psychic world. And for my dad, it was that lady who, with her psychic abilities, began to tell him things that she should not know. And instead of seeing it as a sacred moment, as a time to commune with spirit, a time to learn more from spirit, my dad shut it down. Now, imagine if my dad would have leaned in and saw it as that sacred moment. He probably would have continued to heal people. He would have become a great healer, and he would have then been able to teach us, his kids, those same abilities, and we would be able to do those great things without having to learn them on our own. I'd like to share this experience as an example of how we can begin to set boundaries for how we want to communicate with the psychic world. My daughters were about 13 or 14 years old at this time. One of them stayed home alone from school. She was home from early morning to late afternoon. When I got home, she came out of her room frantic, and I could clearly tell that she was afraid. She began to tell me how during the day she thought I had came home. She heard a presence in my room, and when she came to greet who she thought was me, she walked into my room and realized no one was there. She searched the house and realized she was still home alone. So she went back into her room, afraid, and waited for me to get home. When I went to check my room to see what was going on, the door was locked. So I thought, that's strange because I didn't lock the door. And she explained to me that the door wasn't locked a few minutes ago. I then began to receive a message from the spirit world. So I explained to my daughter, well, this is what's going on. I'm receiving a message from the spirit world. I began to explain to her that she has power, that if anything is making her uncomfortable, whether she can see it or not, she doesn't have to deal with it. She can simply say or make up in her mind that she doesn't want that kind of communication. Like I did when I was 28 years old with the lamp. She can say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. And the spirit world will be respectful of our wishes. Now, what I do, because there are certain things that I don't want done. For example, I do not want to see objects flying across the room, floating in the air. I don't want any kind of paranormal activities. For example, if I walk into my kitchen and all of the cabinet doors come open all at once, that will freak me out, and I won't be open to receiving any messages from the spirit world. So I've communicated clearly with the spirit world. I don't want to see that kind of stuff. Come to me in a way that is comfortable for me. Now, I'm open to visions, I'm open to dreams, I'm open to hearing, and I'm open to seeing with my mind's eye. But what I'm not open to is those paranormal activities that we have deemed spooky. They're not necessarily spooky to me. I just know that it will shut me down. So I've set that boundary with the spirit world. And so far, spirit world has respected those boundaries and will continue to respect those boundaries because spirit is not one to harm us. Everything that comes from the spirit world is actually coming to help us. These real life experiences show that understanding the psychic bridge world is essential because when we ignore it, we feel disconnected. We feel disconnected from spirit, from our bodies, and from ourselves. But when we honor it, we begin to live in alignment, rooted in body, guided by spirit, and deeply attuned to what flows between. We are not meant to choose one world over the other. We are here to be bridges, rooted in the physical, open to spiritual, and guided by the psychic. To live fully, we must walk with a foot in each world and a heart that belongs to all three. Here are some journaling and reflection prompts. You might spend time with one or more of these. When did I first sense the spirit world? Have I ever felt overwhelmed by what I could feel, hear, or know? What boundaries do I need to create to feel safe in my sensitivity? What sacred yes still lives beneath the no I once had to say? What does it mean to return to the garden, not in fear, but in wonder? I invite you to a simple practice that you can do until we meet again. Take 5 minutes out of your day, whether it's in the morning, the afternoon, or even the evening. And what I would like for you to do is find a quiet place to sit. When you are sitting quietly, place one hand on your heart where spirit flows, and one hand on your belly where physical is embodied, and breathe. Ask yourself, what is the message in this moment between worlds? Listen not with your mind, but with your whole self. Do this simple practice until we meet again, and let's see what may be revealed. To the lamps that lit without cords, to the voices we couldn't explain, to the yes that lives beneath the no, may we return to the garden with courage, with boundaries, with wonder. Spirit has never stopped speaking, but now we are learning how to listen. As we leave this moment together, may your feet feel steady in the world you can touch. May your spirit feel connected to the world you cannot see, and may your inner senses walk freely on the bridge between them. May you notice the whisper of spirit in your day, and the ways the physical world responds in beauty and in kindness, and may your own psychic knowing be clear, guiding you as a faithful companion. Go in peace, beloved ones. Go in presence. Go knowing you are a citizen of both worlds and the bridge that makes them whole.